Hey guys, how's it going? Matt from Foul Ball Productions here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're doing well. I am doing great. Thank you. This is the resurrection of a show. One of the first things I did here on YouTube. It's called Matt's Obscure Movie Recommendy Show. And the idea was to find movies that people don't really know, but I happen to love, because when we were all quarantining, we were just streaming content and watching things. We all kind of ran out of stuff. So I thought I would recommend unique and interesting movies that people didn't really know. And then I just kind of let that fade. And now to take the place of covering The Expanse, I have resurrected it. And in this resurrection, the first movie I'm covering is, funny enough, the last movie I covered, but it is 1984's Repo Man. And joining me today to talk about it, you know him, you love him, Paulie, the Latino Slant.
That was intense. Laugh of Repo Man is always intense.
Let's go get a drink.
Yeah. Drink.
Yeah, a drink. I love it. I love it.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, and I'm glad this is happening because we've been wanting to do it for a while now, and I appreciate you being patient. And hey, you had The Expanse to really make sure you guys. I think you guys worked every nook and cranny of The Expanse.
I think so. That's actually a fairly interesting topic because of how contentious like our take is. Even with Gary being there on one of the streams, people are still like, "Oh, these guys are clowns. They don't know what they're talking about." People just, it's a very, very contentious topic right now. So it's
really.
Yeah, I'm like, my video, the one with Gary, it's about 50% like to dislike ratio.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Lovely.
I know. People don't want to hear it, but that's okay. I mean, that's why, that's why we do this. At least that's part of why I do it, is to say the things no one's saying and, get the truth out there for the people.
Well, if we did it for other means than our, the shit we like, then it's kind of lame.
Yeah, it's boring.
It's boring. It's boring,
Not that interesting.
And I mean, how exciting is this movie? I mean, I saw this in the theater. That's how old I am.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I actually have seen this in a theater. I was at the there was what's it called? It's a celebratory screening, what is it when it's like anniversary screening? Jesus.
Yeah.
An anniversary screening. Yeah, exactly. At the LA Film Festival about 6-7 years ago. And I saw it in a theater. And it was an awesome experience. This is such an interesting movie. And I really love bonding over obscure movies that are people don't know, because it's something that's personal to me that I love deeply. But I can never share it with anybody because no one's ever seen it or heard of it.
I mean, this is a great one to start your series back with, because everything from the cast to the story to the director to the stories of how it was made to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, I told Gary Neurotics yesterday we were doing this. He's bummed out because he's had a commitment. Otherwise, I'm there.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
He was like, yeah. And he was like, when is it? Oh, it's tomorrow. I was like, It's one of his favorite films.
That would be wild. I didn't know that. That's great. And that'd be pretty wild having Gary on the channel twice in the same week.
I mentioned that in the membership stream yesterday, and I just mentioned that because we're getting together to go over Repo Man, and not to be confused with Repo Men.
Right. Right, not even close. It's actually such a bummer to me that when you Google this movie, Repo Men comes up a lot.
Yeah, I never even saw that. It just didn't. It looked awful. It looked awful. But yeah, man.
Yeah, man. So let's start at the start then, because this is a pretty interesting movie. Because this movie, I think, has got a lot of punk bona fides. It's authentically a punk movie. Some movies are pretty SLC Punk is a movie that I adore. It's I think a really fun punk rock movie, but the punkness of it, the punk validity of it, is kind of called into question at times. It's in the punk community. We're like, he's not really a punk, blah, blah, But this movie has got the bona fides. It's got the endorsement of the punk community. And the funny thing about it, though, is the way it got made. The producer that brought it to the studios and got the money to it was Michael Nesmith of the Monkees.
Yep. He was one of the rabbis at the end of the movie. He made
Oh,
a little
no
guest
kidding. I didn't
appearance.
know that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
He was always, he was always the independent alternative guy of the Monkees, and I don't think he really liked being in the Monkees. And,
Hmm.
he was always kind of an out of box thinker. He produced a lot of cool stuff. He had
Oh, really?
I think it was called, I know it's called Monkey Parts, but I think it was in 81 that it came out. It was like a really strange alternative TV show. So he's
So he's a
perfect,
little weird.
man. He's perfect because he's that link between Hollywood and the independent scene, and he got a great director. This is Alex Cox's first film out of the gate.
Out of the gate. Yeah, which is really interesting because he went on to do Sid and Nancy, which is a pretty iconic movie with Gary Oldman as playing Sid
Yeah.
Vicious from the Sex Pistols. And I forgot, I don't remember all the details, but I forgot, like, he had like an idea for a movie or something like that. And then this was like, oh, I forgot the whole story with this whole script, but it was interesting, and it was a tough one to make. And it wasn't because it's like, even if you watch it now, like, it's not, it's so specific that if you don't get it, if you don't like it, you wouldn't know what to make of it. So imagine pitching that to Universal, and like, we're gonna, you know what I mean, we're gonna have the CIA and like maybe an alien and like the creator of the neutron bomb and punk rock, and it's Repo Man doing speed. It's such a wild film, but it's so much fun that it's like, yeah, it's just a niche. It's everything Alex Cox did. I think he's credited with saying, I'd rather make something that 20,000 people love than like a million people like kind of enjoy.
Well, this guy lives it, man. He kind of lives that punk attitude, and he doesn't do a lot. And but with this cast, you have Emilio Estevez, you have Harry Dean Stanton as the two, leads, so to speak. I mean,
Yeah.
Harry Dean's a great co-star. It was just a fantastic casting, man. And
Brilliant.
we really see in the 80s too, those mid 80s, like Emilio, what he could do. This guy, the kid had, at the time as a kid, had a lot of range, from playing the jock in Breakfast Club to this punk rocker to Soda Pop with the little Oklahoma accent and The Outsiders. He did was he Soda Pop, or
I
was
don't know.
he?
I've never seen The Outsiders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it was like
mhm.
queued up for me one night, but I just, one of those movies I just never got around to.
Definitely, I would check it out. It's a Coppola film.
Oh, no kidding.
The cast is stacked. From Macho, C. Thomas Howell to, and every single outsider was a star. Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, Emilio, and it's set in Tulsa. So Emilio put on he had greaser hair, and he put on this cool little Midwestern accent. He did a good job, but I think that was it Alex Cox or no, it was Vicky Thomas, the casting director of Repo Man. She couldn't get Emilio. She had to go
Really?
through a friend. Yeah, she had to go through a side friend just to get the script to Emilio, because the manager said, "Stop fucking bothering him."
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I get that because, if you're like a Hollywood guy, like a Hollywood, numbers guy,
Mhm.
and you're a guy, you've got a rising star, your client is becoming this big, movie star. He's a pedigree, Martin Sheen's kid, like he's got,
Mhm.
like the potential to be a mega star doing millions of dollars in movies. You don't want him
Mhm.
doing some weird, hard to market, obscure,
Mhm.
bananas, off the wall, essentially art film for a first time director. So you're not even going to give it to your client. You're not going to bother. You're not going to waste his time because it's not going to
Yeah.
make you any money. And, unless it's a real interesting film, it's probably not even going to do much for your client's career. So you're just like, nah, whatever. Just stop bugging us. We're trying to get into the next Die Hard or whatever the fuck.
I mean, this was the anti-Hollywood movie of the year, and it was it was one of the best reviewed movies of that year.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, yeah. They loved it, because it was such a breath of fresh air, compared to what was going on in Hollywood. So, Emilio took a gamble. So did Harry Dean. I heard Harry Dean was a he was a lot to deal with on the set, but
I know. Well, there's that
Yeah.
one sequence with the brothers Rodriguez where they're in the like towards the end when they're
Mhm.
getting into a fight and they kind of run each other off the road, and Harry Dean Stanton has that bat
Yeah.
and he's going after him. And the famous story is that Harry Dean didn't want to use like a rubber bat; he wanted to use a real bat.
Yeah.
And one of the actors, because it's actually like there's a lot of action in that sequence, you know, from choreography standpoint, and it's a smaller budget film. You don't have like days to choreograph every movement.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's an independent film, so they're
Yeah.
basically kind of half really fighting. And so the bat, I guess, like whiffed past someone's head, and they were just like, we're done. That's the last take I'm doing. I'm not gonna get a concussion or go to the hospital because Harry Dean wants it to be real.
Yeah. He you know, but what a performance, man.
Oh, he's great. He's
you know,
great. It's like something I noticed when he's on screen. It's like if the other character's talking, if like Emilio Estevez is talking, look at what Harry Dean's doing because he's always doing something really interesting.
So are we like kind of spoiling for people and we want to tell what the story's all about? Is that cool, or do we want them to see it?
Maybe we could dance around the plot points and just kind of embrace the love of it. But I guess if you are curious to watch it, maybe come back and watch this after you saw it, because I think we're gonna get into the guts of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, guys, highly recommend this film, especially if you're a movie buff. You know, like we were saying, you know, from director to soundtrack. But you know, okay, so I'll just off the title, Repo Man. It's about a punk kid. He's got no job.
Yeah, got no friends.
Got no friends. Got no girlfriend.
Got no girlfriend. Yeah, I love that line.
She was pretty hot though.
She's smoking.
She was a gorgeous woman. Yeah,
you know, it's interesting. Woman. I always thought that she was a real like bitch. So in the scene, he's like at this punk rock party. His buddy just got out of juvie. When'd you get out of the slammer, man? And they're at this party, and he's with his girlfriend, and he's kind of like, it's weird. He's a punk, but he's kind of square. He like has to like fold his pants to like hook up with the girl, and so they're naked in bed. And he just leans back. And he's like, okay, I'm ready. And it's like, and you see her face, and I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty shitty thing to do. Is just like, all right, you can go ahead and blow me now. And so I always kind of looked at her as like, for years I was like, oh, this girl, she just did it, but like he kind of did it to himself. Like he sort of deserved it. Like, you know.
Well, I mean, and that attitude, he had that attitude throughout the whole film till the very end, where the new girlfriend was like,
yeah, it's true.
What about us?
Yeah.
What did he say?
What about our relationship? What about our relationship? The hell with that.
He didn't say the hell with that. He said, fuck that.
Yeah, fuck that.
I mean, that's what's, and he's in, you know, so I mean, everywhere this character turns, he's just so anti everything.
Yeah.
You know, but Harry Dean and the other guys, which was great because the other guys take him under his wing, and he basically becomes part of their fellowship, which is just so cool. They're showing him the ropes. You know, he's getting off the high of the business. You know, I don't think he even cares about making money, but he kind of does. But he's like, man, you know, this is a high. You know, shooting at people and, you know, car chases,
robbers.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just intense. Yeah, it's just funny where he rebels. You know, from the coworkers. I mean, to his first job, he doesn't realize that he was that he repoed a car.
Yes,
right. Because Harry Dean tricks his ass, and they're in the office.
That's great.
And he's like, "Are you guys a Repo Man?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's got a beer in his hand. He's got just a deadpan. He's like, "Fuck you guys!"
And he just throws it down and then stands there.
Oh,
you know,
man.
Kid. Some punk comes in, pulls a stunt like that. My first instinct is to knock his block off. But you're all right.
And you know, now think about the casting. If it was someone like kind of like more of an abrasive face, abrasive attitude, you wouldn't like the lead.
No.
you know, but Emilio, you know, he brings you in, and you like his humor. He
Yeah.
does, you know, there are moments where he does try to be a good guy,
Yeah.
but he kind of just doesn't give a fuck, you
He's a
know. So
punk.
he's not like, he doesn't have a big internal struggle.
No, no, he's a punk. Like when he's like trying to
Yeah.
get that girl for a date, and then he knocks all those garbage cans over or whatever, and she's like, "Pick that up, pick that up,"
The old
and
lady.
he goes, "No, what? I'm not gonna pick this." It's like he has that just kind of like, you know, let laissez-faire kind of attitude. Like he's just a punk, and he's a kid, you know, which I think
Right.
is really interesting. And there's a sequence in the beginning when he's working at the grocery store.
That's right at the beginning of the movie.
Right at the
Of his,
beginning.
yeah, it's his the first time we see him, right?
Yeah, and the kid
Mhm.
is, his buddy is like singing.
He's singing
Feeling
the
7
old
Up,
7 Up song,
feeling
right?
7 Up. My cat is acting up right now. And then like he takes the price gun and puts it on his glasses. And then my favorite part is like the boss comes over, and the
Yeah,
boss is like, Otto,
yeah.
he says, it's come to my attention that you're not paying attention to
Oh
the way you
god.
space the cans. Many young men in these uncertain times, Otto, are you listening to me? And then the
Mhm.
other guy, we go, hey, he's talking to you. There's
Yeah, that's great character actor. That guy was in Pee Wee Herman. He's been all kinds of shit.
he's
The
great. What's his name?
Luis
Louis.
the security guard. Hey, he's talking to you.
And then he goes, fuck you. And then he's throw him out, Louis. Way to get fired by your job in a big way, Otto. What are you laughing at? Throw him out too. And it's like, it was so cathartic because it's like anyone who's
Mhm.
ever had one of those jobs and one of those stuffy bosses who thinks like, you're cutting, you're splitting the atom when you're
Mhm.
just, spacing fucking cans at a grocery store. You're like, just to go, fuck you and quit. It's so like, yeah, that's punk rock. Like, I love that scene.
I mean, um, so he's trying to find a job, right? And he's trying to figure out how to make some money. Um, and one idea is that he goes and visits his parents.
Yeah,
And
great scene.
you know, I've always loved you, Dad. You
You
too,
too,
Mom.
Mom.
So what do you guys say? He basically asked for he's basically asking for an advance on the money
His
that
money for college.
right.
And the way he asked, it's so insincere. It's got this big build up to it. And he's like, you always said you'd give me some money if I went to college. Well, I think that's what I
Mhm.
want to do. Yeah. But I think I'd rather have the money first. I've always loved you, Mom. And you too, Dad. And, well, what do you say? And then the parents are just sitting there like high, watching some like televangelist, and they're just passing a joint back and forth. And they're like,
Right.
we don't have it.
Yeah,
What?
it's really interesting. It's really interesting because they were the last generation of anti-establishment, hippies, still smoking grass, older now, but the consumerism has taken hold of them, right? And so they give all their money away to the TV evangelist who shows up later at the end of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
which is so brilliant on Alex. The script is so fucking brilliant because there's so many of these little trinkets that always come back,
Yes.
and the so anyways, yeah, those parents were just hilarious.
Hilarious.
Um,
And 'cause it's kind of like something that I think he touches on a lot. And I mean, I think any movie touching about like the punk rock spirit is talking about is
mhm,
kind of the people like the posers,
mhm.
like the kind of people who like say the thing, for a while and then they like join corporate America and just kind of sell out and they don't, it was all just because they were like, it's kind of like the woke kids now, it's like the energy is there, but the follow through isn't, it's so I think the kind of comment on the hippies was, it's just like they're everything
Yeah,
they claim that they were anti, and they like
right.
they can't take care of their kid and they live in this kind of detached pseudo life where they're just high, like getting downloaded bullshit information and you're just like glued to the couch
Yeah,
like the people they thought that they were better than.
they don't even look at Emilio. I mean, they're completely disconnected from from their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Which and just to back up before that, he takes a bus to Edge City, which is the urban sprawl and suburbs were a real thing. LA just doesn't look like this anymore, but when he took that bus, and it almost looks like he's in the freaking desert, and he's like really kind of like at the edge of Los Angeles, and just the way they're acting, man, they're just so zombied out. It's really creepy.
It is creepy.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like it's like a societal comment. It's like in Shaun of the Dead, when everyone turns to zombies, he doesn't notice at first, because they just kind of doing the same thing as they were the day before, where they're all just sort of tuned out. It's kind of like that. It's like the whole thing is there's always like running commentary on the thing, like his buddy. I can't remember his name, but the bald punk who's like the kind of one of the antagonists. Duke, yeah.
His buddy Duke, yeah.
His buddy Duke, and he's running around robbing people. And right before,
and so it's like Duke, the Emilio's ex-girlfriend, and Archie, this punk.
Archie.
And we'll get to Archie in a second, but it's a trio of punk bank robbers, and they're the shittiest, stupidest robbers.
And well, because what I was gonna get at was right before they go to rob the last thing, Duke's in the car, and he's saying like, hey, why don't we settle down? I want you to have my baby. And they're like doing like some kind of drug or like PCP or something right before they go do a bank robbery.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And he's like, well, everyone's doing it. It's like, I guess the thing to be like, it's that kind, like, he's like, I'm an anti-establishment punk who just robs, but like, he's just like everyone else. Like, he just wants to fit in and have like the picket fence. And it's like that comment on the, false rebellion and, all that type of stuff. And I love that's a through line in that movie. Because ultimately, like, it's not really making any statements. It's just having fun and taking the piss out of everything.
Well, and he's got some of the best lines in the movie too.
Dude.
Yeah, like let's go get sushi and not pay for it.
Yeah. Let's go do those crimes.
Let's go commit crimes.
Crimes. Yeah, let's go get sushi and not pay.
But and his girlfriend is like the boss, man. Besides being completely hot. I mean, she's got that mohawk, but she's like, would not want to get her upset. That was great, man. It was great. But except for Emilio's character, Emilio's pure.
Yeah, it's true.
And so is Harry Dean Stanton. Very principled character. Which the last line of the film of his character when he gets shot. Sorry, guys, spoilers. He quotes Emiliano Zapata. And he says that rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And I was like, what? And I looked and I did the research, and sure enough, Alex Cox quoted Zapata, because that's one of my favorite quotes, period.
It's what I call the repo code, kid. But he is like, I think it's commending his principles. Like, even though, he's kind of full of shit, like he's talking, like he's acting as if he's got his life together. And then they're doing speed at the middle of the night. You know what I mean? Like, he's got this, like, it's a really interesting contradiction. They're drinking and doing speed all night. And he's just like looking at the world like everyone else doesn't have their shit together. I got it all figured out. And
he's doing speed technically with a minor.
Yeah.
Emilio's 17, and the character's 17. Otto.
That's a good point.
It was Otto. His name's Otto.
Yeah.
Otto. And you're right. Otto, he is. I mean, they're all fuck ups. They're all losers on different levels. I mean,
you Repo Men are out to lunch.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the world is so. It's so amazing, the world in this universe that of these Repo Men, because it's real, it's funny, it's dangerous.
It's also like never ever been shown on camera.
Yeah,
like, I mean, at 84, like, who had ever seen a movie or even a show or a documentary, nothing about Repo Men? Like, why would you? Why is it even an interesting job? But to kind of make them these sort of vigilantes, these sort of like outlaws almost, for debt collectors is a really interesting idea.
Yeah, yeah, and it took a foreigner too, in Alex Cox to, and he went to UCLA, but the way he filmed LA to make it look, desolate,
Yeah.
Western, almost Western style, and even some of these shots of downtown. I mean, it was great.
Yeah,
It's great.
If you've ever been down there, it really looks like that. It's this kind of this like urban sprawl, but it's a lot of industry mixed in with these, sort of depressed communities, and so much concrete, so much poured concrete, the concrete bridges, the LA River. And it's a really ugly part of town, to be completely honest. And for him to shoot it like that, it's like it's like, it doesn't even feel like the same Los Angeles that makes movies, Like every movie set in LA sort of feels like LA, like even like Terminator, still feels like LA. This feels like another planet.
Well, it's, it was still pretty provincial, it was still like, you can really, get lost and create different worlds. And speaking, we're not even bringing up any of the alien subplot. I mean,
Right.
guys, this movie has got something for everybody, So we're talking about Repo Man, but it's a comedy. And then there's aliens, but it's punk rock. And then there's,
action sequences. And then there's like
action sequences.
I wouldn't call it a romance, but it's like there is like, there's like a couple thing going on with that girl who, when I rewatched it just the other day, I was like, this girl's sexy.
Oh,
she's got like a little something going on about her.
Nah, she was hot, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just something fun about her. And I love at the end when he breaks up with her and he's like, fuck that. She goes, oh, I'm glad I tortured you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So many great lines, just one-liners and throwaways. You were saying how well the script was constructed. It's actually really interesting because the script went through a lot of changes and the final cut wasn't the first script that he wrote. So there was some. It was ultimately, I think he was supposed to take the Malibu at the end to South America to help the Sandinistas.
Right. And become right. Because Alex Cox has a thing with the civil uprisings in Latin America.
Yeah, that was like a big part of the story. And there's a sequence that remains from that subplot when when Harry Dean Stanton's outside yelling at the Brothers Rodriguez's house. Repo Man's got all night, every night. He's just screaming. He's still down there, but she's got like a revolutionary beret on, and like the Brothers Rodriguez are talking about that's where they had that famous line of, they do not believe in drugs or do not partake in drugs, and it hits the joint.
Right. Yeah, that's the great actor Del Zamora.
Yeah.
Who also was in Born in East LA. He's hysterical, man.
He's so funny.
Yeah. Great actors up and down.
I love the way also the movie takes on tropes and like even just like some movie like elements, right? So like the Repo Men are all dressed up and like after like a night of drinking, they're gonna go take out the Brothers Rodriguez, right? And they're gonna have this big showdown, and then they like the car chase and they're like bring them all over, and that's when Harry Dean Stanton grabs the bat and swings at him, and then the guy's on top and he's like, "Hey, did you see that? He hit us. Like, did you hurt your neck?" And he's like, "Oh
yeah. Ow,
yeah,
my neck."
My neck. And he's just like, "Yeah, we're gonna sue you." And then you just be like, "Wait, what?" And then it's like, then they get a summons from the cops, and there was like this whole insurance thing, and it's like it was just like, oh right, this is the real world. It's not a Western where you get your posse and you go after the bad guy. Like there's laws and insurance companies. You can't just do all that stuff. And it was so funny because you're just like, oh yeah, it's true. That's true.
But you remember? So there's so many great moments in this movie. On a musical note, there's a ska mod band called the Untouchables, and in the 80s, and then they had a couple of medium-sized hits. Anyways, they're in the movie, and they're the guys on the scooters driving.
Oh yeah.
So they're driving, right? And then Emilio is talking to this old black lady and basically wants to repo the car. They show up, I guess, to the grandkids, and they're like, she's, oh baby, how's rehearsal? How's rehearsal, baby?
And there's like,
you know,
6 of them, and a lot of them are not little people. Like like one guy is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like one of the lead singers in the band, but he's a huge black dude, right?
Huge.
They're all, yeah. And they're all kind of fucking mad dogging him. And then he leaves, and
but first he's trying to like close like the briefcase, and he can't.
That's so uncomfortable. I'm like, close it.
Yeah, he's gonna go.
Yeah, but so yeah, that band, those actors are an actual music band, and then they beat the shit out of him,
Right. Well, because what he tries to do is, so he goes out to repo the car. Like he goes to like pretend that he's leaving. He's like, yeah, I don't want to have to do this. Just, and then you hear, it's funny too, because then you hear from inside the house, you hear like this nice old black lady. Like then you hear like the real personality come out, and she starts yelling at him and all this shit. And then he's just like looks under. And so he goes to to repo the car. But what they did was they jacked it up, and he didn't know. So like the rear tires are just spinning while he's like gassing it, and then they hear him from inside, and they just beat the shit out of him. It's so great. It's so funny.
And so that first step of fellowship with the older Repo Men, they're like, tell us who did it, god damn it, we're gonna kick their ass.
Yeah,
we're all in it together. And he calls out his old boss.
Yeah, well, yeah, because at first he's like, no, he tells them no, and they're like, listen, kid, it's not about you. A Repo Man got hurt in the line of duty. Now tell us the name. Because it's not even really in defense of him. It's just that they get to go beat the shit out of somebody.
I mean, yeah, it really, this movie really just speaks to anything that's anti-establishment that you feel, anti, anything from the government to a lady having her garbage cans in the corner.
Yeah,
like
religion. And
God, like religion gets a beating in this one.
Religion gets a good beating, but it's the 80s. It deserved it. It's like he just takes
I did feel bad. So they're equal opportunity haters of religion in this one. Because there's a whole televangelist thing and the consumerism and taking the money of that. The first car that he repossesses, that he doesn't know that he's repossessing, and he's trying to help Harry Dean, who says, hey, I'll give you some money, but we got to get my car in this bad area. My wife's pregnant. Like a bullshit story.
Yeah. She's pregnant with twins. She could drop at any moment. I got to get my car out of this bad area. It's like, what?
Okay, let me hold it together. All right. Okay. Remember the first line he says, hey, he drives up to Emilio. Emilio's walking down the street, all pissed off, doesn't have a job. It's like, hey, you want to make some money?
You want to make $20? And he goes, fuck you, queer.
Oh shit! It wasn't even 20 at first. He said 10 or something like that. he's Emilio. He without a hesitation. Fuck you, queer. I was like, oh shit. And everybody's like, oh, hey, hold on.
Oh, you got the wrong idea.
Got the wrong idea. So, anyways, he convinces Emilio to help him out, and he gets in this car, and this old Mexican fellow comes out. He's like, ya tiene mi carro, what? I don't know, que la chingada. He's holding Emilio while kind of running outside of the car, but holding him. And Emilio's trying to and then the fucking old man goes tumbling down, and then I guess the mom or la señora is like, oh no,
It's great.
It was great. But you know what? Because Emilio is like, his character is just like, fuck yeah, whatever. And then he sees the Virgin Mary statue on the dashboard. He grabs it, he chucks it out the window. Like, damn.
Yeah. Religion takes a beating in this movie, but it's also it's the 80s. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that was the establishment back then. It was like that sort of Reagan era time where it was like this conservative majority. And I think it's like that, it was appropriate back then, because it's like you always got to take shots at like who's dominating the conversation. I find it offensive now, not offensive, but just irritating when people do it now, because it's like it's this false rebellion. Like it's an easy, safe target that's been tackled so many times, since then, since Carlin. And it's just like, well,
Right.
ooh, look at you with your tough taking on religion. Oh, how edgy. It's like, shut up. So it's like it's not a tough target, Back then, though, I think it was. I think it was still like it's still gonna ruffle some feathers. I mean, the Catholic League, they were the people that would cancel back then. They would get together and they would write letters and they'd get upset. They were the ones that would get their followers to boycott stuff. They were like the first cancel culture. They used to do it a lot up through the 90s. It was a big part of what they did, big part of their brand. So going after them, I find in this context is reasonable.
I mean, and this film does a great job of it, as far as the Reagan era and, the economic depression and still the nuclear, the nuclear age. And
so let's get into that a little bit then, because there's the whole thing. So the movie opens, the first thing you see is this guy, J. Frank Parnell, this really, really weird scientist. Radiation. You hear the most pernicious lies about it. He's so weird. We could all take 100 chest x-rays a year. It'll be fine. He's nuts. And he's got like one eye.
No, he's got two eyes. He only has one lens.
Yeah, it's very like love.
Yeah,
it's very like
he's very like very affected.
Yeah, he's really wild and weird. He's great. Do you ever feel? Well, does he ever feel like life is meaningless or something like that? The kid's like he's driving. He's like no, but so he's driving from Los Alamos, from New Mexico, into L.A. and this cop, this state trooper, pulls him over and he goes, what's in the trunk? And he goes, oh, you don't want to look back there. Give me the keys. And so he goes to the back and like opens the trunk, and this like bright light zaps the cop. He goes, ah! And this kind of really cheesy effect, but I love it because it's really just like a still frame of like an animation of like a skeleton, but it really works in the context of this movie that's just taking the piss out of everything. So basically, there's this Chevy Malibu that J. Frank Parnell's driving that has something in the trunk. We don't know what, but everyone involved in the movie is trying to get the Malibu, and that's where the Repo Men come in. So like the CIA want it because of whatever reasons, and then so they put out a $20,000 repo for it, and then the Repo Men get it, and then the whole movie, the action of the movie is everyone trying to get their hands on this Chevy Malibu
that has an alien body in the trunk.
Well, that's what the United Fruitcake outlet people think.
I mean, that's what's so great about this film is that it's got everything in it. I mean, you got punk rockers, you got Repo Men, you have the
alien,
the
CIA,
the X-File-ish type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love too. You know what I noticed? All right, I'm gonna try to find it because it really cracked me up.
Yeah.
When I saw it, I got it right here. This is perfect.
Yeah. See it.
It was right after. So the CIA is on the case, and they find they find the body of the trooper. Well, really, they just find his smoking boots. Everything else has just been evaporated. And so they're on the case, and there's all these CIA agents that are like trying to tackle it, led by this woman, Agent Rogers
with a Z.
With a Z.
So stupid.
So stupid.
She's got the metal hand.
Yeah. And this really made me laugh last night when I was watching it, because like the first thing I saw when I saw these two guys is they both look like Trump.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot going on here, just what you said as well, right? And one thing, I mean, they're complete. Obviously, these guys, the government and everyone that's represented here, they're complete idiots. They're just so ineffective. But you see, he has a bag and it says pretzels. That's a motif of the consumerism in that everything is kind of like this Acme branding and packaging. So you don't see any like Heinz or 7-Up bottles or, you know, Coca-Cola at the time, right? Which is really big. You just see any item and it says, you know, pretzels,
beer,
sliced peaches.
One literally, he goes at one point when Harry Dean Stanton and him are like, let's go get a drink. They go to the store and they put down a 6-pack of drink.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's brilliant. It's so fucking simple and it's so brilliant.
And it's like little stuff, like, and they never did like an insert of it where they show, hey, look, I mean, except for the drink joke, but that's just to get the gag. Like it's all just like you said, a motif. It's just a stylistic choice that exists in this, and they never highlight it, they never explain it, they never make some like impassioned speech about consumerism. It's just there, and it's a joke, and it's great. It's like one of those things that I just adore about this movie. Is it like it has a really elegant sense of humor, you know?
Yeah, they don't beat it over your head. It's really, you know, it's just really part of the tapestry of the world. Yeah, it's great, man. It's great. And I forgot what you know, yeah, did you I was gonna you want to talk about the cast?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Let's do it.
Let's share. Let me share this screen. Let me see. Let's go to the IMDb, because you're gonna recognize these. Obviously, we know Harry Dean and Emilio, but the third and that's another thing is that everyone is named after beer. All the Repo Men except for Otto. Harry Dean's Bud. Oh no! Oh yeah, Harry Dean's Bud. Tracy Walters Miller. Cy Richardson's Light.
That's great. I didn't know that. That's so funny.
So you guys will recognize Tracy Walter, this amazing character actor.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know he was he still with us? Anyways,
what up, yo?
What's up?
He's from Jersey, just like me.
Jersey City. So he where are you from in Jersey?
Right around there, actually, Essex County.
Jersey City.
My dad's
Mrs. Slant. We've talked about this before. Mrs. Slant's from Newark.
That's right. Yeah. I'm like from down the road.
Right. Yeah. So Tracy Walters' character, which we haven't touched on yet, he is sort of the shaman, weirdo, kind of like, you know, sane, the amazing,
he's like a sage. I think.
Sage, but his everyday life, he's like the janitor of the yard, of the repo yard. He's just, you know.
Yeah. Just, I mean, when you meet him, he's got a barrel and he's just burning things.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like anything particular. It didn't seem like it was a job needed doing. It just seemed like he wanted to burn some shit.
Oh, and that. So Tracy, so his character, right? You know, he's, you know, just such a prolific thinker, but he comes off really strange. And he's talking about, you know, things that aren't coincidental, right? You know, say you're thinking of shrimp or a plate of shrimp or shrimp, and then a few minutes later you see shrimp.
Yeah.
Or someone says shrimp.
Plate of shrimp. No use thinking about it. It's all part of this cosmic unconsciousness. It's like a lattice, like over the like, and it's like if you're really listening to him, you're like, he's making a lot of sense. Like
making a lot of sense, right? And then what does Emilio's character say? He's like, "You do a lot of acid."
Yeah, you do a lot of acid, Miller. And then, but then,
like, no.
Here we go. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Just in synchronistic time, because I have it going on in the background.
Okay.
Let me share my screen right quick. Oh, that's
and then I'll get to Arturo or Miguel Sandoval.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear about that because you're telling
blew my mind.
That's really interesting. All right, so let me show you this moment right here. This is, and then you see later on in the movie with the guy, and there's a sign that says "Plate of Shrimp Luncheon Special," and it's like it's like, and it was, you know, maybe 15 minutes later. They put in like the subliminal joke that maybe you catch it, maybe you don't. It's like this, like, you know,
and it's not really big.
No,
right?
It's just a subtle little moment, like it's barely there. I mean, as the scene goes on, like it's kind of framed into the shot, but it's still
but you're not looking at it.
you're
You're
not
looking
looking
at
at it.
Del Zamora making the phone call.
Yeah, and
Right.
the way that it was a tracking shot, so like you follow him into the
Correct.
so you don't even. It's not like it's open. You see that.
Yeah.
You know, it's brilliant.
That was
It's
great.
such a good joke.
Yeah. And then so Tracy Walter's character, I guess they say it's their favorite scene that they shot was when they were all together. The Repo Men are drinking in the yard.
I love that scene.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I love that scene so much. John Wayne was a fag.
John Wayne was a fag.
The hell he was.
Well, he was.
You boys. I installed two-way mirrors at his house in Brentwood. That doesn't mean he was a homo, Miller. Lots of guys like to watch their buddies fuck. I know I do.
Don't you? Right? Don't you?
Fuck a John Wayne.
Fucking John Wayne. You know, I don't even know if you can get away with a scene like that right nowadays, man.
Definitely not.
That scene, it was like it was such a great scene.
So
and
great.
Tracy, the way he plays that character is just so deadpan.
It's awesome. That black dude too. I don't know who that guy is, but he is great. He's nuts. He's just, you know.
Yeah. So Emilio's character kind of like, gets indoctrinated, in the world of the Repo Man. But so because he goes out with each one, kind of learning the ropes, and the black guys just
I mean, they're all nuts. I mean, they really are
nuts, but he's smooth nuts.
He's smooth nuts. He seems more like he's got it together. He doesn't when you really listen to him, but he's just got a lot more confidence. And the way he smokes that giant cigarette where it's just hanging out the side of his mouth, it's so great. He's just such an intimidating guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So what was this about? Oh no.
Okay. So check this out. So Archie. This is Archie, right? Archie. This is the good-looking punk rocker kid who's like kind of plays a second fiddle to the Duke and the chick. Like that's the robber team, right? So they kept saying Miguel Sandoval's in this movie. I'm like, okay, well, where is he? And he's like, Miguel Sandoval, Archie. I'm like, what? Well, that's Miguel Sandoval.
That is nuts.
How can this Miguel Sandoval be Archie? What the fuck,
dude? Like my mind is 100% blown.
Right.
That's the same guy. Like I can't believe it.
Because this was we'll back up, right? Because this is an older photo, but he's a prolific character actor,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's all over like one of those Law and Order shows.
Right. So this is great look. Always good. Always does solid work. He's one of those guys. Like give him a bigger role. He kicks ass. But
he's in so much. I know his face so well.
Right. So just a few years later. So this was 1984. Okay. Now in 1989 he was in Do the Right Thing. So
no kidding.
Yeah, Miguel. There he goes. I'm already looking at this stuff, bro. So this is just a couple years later.
God, that's crazy.
I'm like, what?
Dude, I love that, dude. There was a guy I like when actors are when they're chameleons, man. I saw a dude who was in that movie Bright.
He's in Bright?
Did you see that movie?
I still haven't seen that movie.
Bro, it's really good. I love it. And it takes place in LA. I think it's a great movie. Like a lot of people.
David Ayers. Yeah.
Yeah, David Ayers. And it takes place. It's kind of like as if like orcs and elves and fairies were all real, like they were like in Lord of the Rings, but now we're like 2,000 years in the future, like or whatever 4,000 years, like they existed, but now we live in a modern society. So there's all these like social like differences between orcs and the elves are really rich and powerful and run everything, and the orcs are kind of like the underclass. It's real, but they also coexist with humans. It's brilliant. It's really well. It's a very interesting idea. But there's this actor in it, dude. And he plays this gangbanger, this sort of like leader of like a Latin gang in like East LA. And he's like paralyzed because he got shot like in a gang fight. And so there was this big issue with a magic wand. And people in the modern era know about magic wands. And if you you can do anything with it if you can hold it. You can make you can give yourself millions of dollars. You can do whatever. And he wants to walk again, so he's just like takes all his gangbanger buddies and they surround these cops, and he wants to get the magic wand. And so a big part of the movie is like them, trying to outrun him and his gang. And the dude who plays him, when I saw the actor who actually performed the role, I was like, that's the same fucking guy. I couldn't believe it. It was like night and day, like a completely different person. And he was such a good character. He was so intense, man. It was it's a really interesting. I love when you find shit like that.
Who was the actor?
I'm gonna have to find it right now. So let me just look it up. And
as you're doing that, so like going back to this cast, there's Miguel, young Miguel as Archie, and Archie talked like this,
King Archie.
King Archie. He was just an over-the-top punk rocker, and that little punk rock gang were just biggest. Well, the two guys were idiots. She had brains, but I
mean, they were just dummies. They're just
I thought that would blow your mind. That
is a fascinating fact. It absolutely did blow my mind. Yeah. Okay, so this is the character. This is the guy. This is like what he looked like in the movie, like in Bright. Let me see here. Is this the right one? No. Boom. So this is what he looked like, and he's like this really scary Latin gangster, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's just like really intense, and his eyes are nuts. Like his eyes are so wild. This is the actor that plays him. I couldn't believe it. His name is Enrique Murciano.
Really? Look at this guy.
This kid. This pretty boy. I was like, what? That's the same guy? Yeah. How is that the same fucking guy?
Wow.
Blew my mind. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it goes to show you. I mean, these are actors, and they did, in Repo Man, they're, that really uplifted the movie, was that this was so well cast,
Yeah.
Shit, man. But yeah, what else can we talk about with this film?
So it's really interesting because there was a sequel to it that was Repo Chick.
Yeah.
And I never saw it. It looked horrible. It looked like a mess. But there actually, interestingly enough, was a follow-up graphic novel called Waldo's Hawaiian Holiday. And I mean, the art's pretty good. I kind of like it. I'm pretty new to what's it called, in comic books and the graphic novel world. But yeah, it's supposed to be where he goes after the end when he gets in the Chevy Malibu. And like that's like supposed to be the whole story.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's an interesting follow-up to like the whole thing, because the universe of it's such a wild, it's just such a wild ride, this movie, like where it goes and the places it touches and the themes and all the, I don't know, it's just such a fun movie, man.
So let's talk about the soundtrack.
Yeah, let's talk about the soundtrack.
Let me pull this up. Okay. So right here, here's the track listings.
Boom.
You got Repo Man by Iggy Pop. And once Iggy Pop recorded this, he recorded it after the fact that he saw like a rough cut or some shit like that. It kind of gave this whole thing legitimacy, Iggy Pop, Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies, Circle Jerk, Burning Sensations, Fear, another Circle Jerk song, and Juicy Bananas. But the unsung heroes here of not only this soundtrack, Matt, but also the score are the Plugs. And the band, the Plugs, they're, 3/4 of them are Chicanos, led by Tito La Riva. So the Plugs in this case, they did El Clavo y la Cruz, which is the song I always use for a lot of my show intros, right? That's the one where we connected, right? Are you there? I think he's...
Yeah, no, I'm here. Sorry, I just had to step away. I mean, I just stepped. I was listening to everything you were saying.
Okay, all right.
I'm here.
Okay, no problem. Like, because I wasn't looking at this screen, I was like looking at the other screen.
All good, my friend.
So the Plugs, what they did, the Clavo y la Cruz, the one that me and you like, I play a lot.
Yeah.
But also they did that Hombre Secreto.
That plays right during the sequence when we were describing earlier, when he's ripping off that Latin dude's car, and he's grabbing his car, and he's like freaking out and driving away.
Right. Yeah. It's so memorable when I was young, because I was like, it sounds Mexican, but it's not. And then, years later, it feels like, oh, it was done by one of the greatest Chicano punk bands, the Plugs. I was like, oh, that makes sense. They also did a killer anarchistic punk version of La Bamba.
Oh, that's badass,
dude. That's intense. It's intense.
Really, that's cool. I'd love to hear that. I wish we could play it.
I know, right? So then they also did a Secret Agent Man, Hombre Secreto.
Yes, which I didn't notice until this rewatch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never picked up on it. And it's like the sequence when he is with the girl, he just picks her up, and she's like freaking out, right? Like she like hides under the chair, like away from the CIA agents, because she thinks what's in the trunk of that car is the neutron bomb, or sorry, is the aliens. And so she's like on the trail of it, and the CIA agents are following her, and so then she like hides, and in the background is this Latino version of of Secret Agent Man, and it's great.
Yeah. It's really good. If you guys, maybe we could put this set list, the soundtrack list, in the description later on.
Sure.
Do yourself a favor, guys, and listen to this album, and pay attention to the Plugs. The Iggy Pop song's great. So then at the end of the movie, which is the montage of, the car taking off as a flying saucer with Emilio in it, the Plugs play Reel 10. And it is their kind of punk new wave homage to, what do you call it? What's the Italian composer's name?
I know Morricone, or
yeah,
the one that Tarantino's obsessed with,
right? So this was their homage. This one song was their homage to him, and it's a very spaghetti western, and yet it's very sounds very punk and atmospheric.
It's really well written song. Like it has actually like a really romantic in the sense of like, the way movies have like they conjure like a romance. Like it has this really like it sums it up. It has this very like free feeling. It's a great song. It's really, really good.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't talked at all about what anyone in the chat is saying. Do you mind if I just talk about what 32 Flavors is saying?
Not at all. I hail to everyone in the chat. I love you guys. You guys are all like some of my, my people. Just Another Red Shirts here, Anthoparian, Vigilante, and of course 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser. And
yeah, it's an incredible. Not only is with Suicidal and the Circle Jerks are in the movie as well.
It's a really funny sequence, actually. They meet, so Otto meets up with one of the CIA agents at this like club, and they're like this lounge band, like shoobity doo up, but they're doing one of their songs. And he looks at them, he's like, I can't believe I used to like these guys.
Right. And besides, besides their hard stuff, they're at that time when he's meeting the girlfriend and stuff, they're playing this total like weird ass loungy song.
Right.
Like.
And I think it's a version of one of their other songs. It's just like got like done to a lounge, beat, just like a slow, like loungy style, which is so goddamn funny.
Yeah. So, I
want to say before, I don't want to move on though, but from the soundtrack thing, because an interesting thing that happened with the soundtrack. So when the movie was released, it didn't do well like I think there was like a shift of like who was in charge of distribution or production or something like that at Universal, and they kind of tanked the movie. They gave it like 1 or 2 weekends and on limited theaters, and it didn't do anything. But what happened was the soundtrack was released, and that caught fire, and the interest became so resurged from like how good the soundtrack was that Universal re-released the film, and it ended up making a profit from that re-release, and I think probably solidified its status as like, you know, this cult movie that people really love.
Well, again, you know, the soundtrack and it was so legit. It was, you know, it wasn't like, you know,
it's punk. It's really punk rock.
It's right, and it's by reputable punk bands at the time, you know, and not like you know, punk. Let's get Michael Jackson, let's get Prince,
or even like it didn't even have like the mainstream, like it didn't have like the Ramones or like the Sex Pistols or like Generation X or like or is it?
Well, they had Iggy Pop, right, which was a gateway, which was the gateway.
Yeah. He's mainstream, but he's punk.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is like Iggy Pop was like, you know, the Bob Dylan of punk, right? Like he's very respected, right?
Yes,
like,
that's a great way.
Visionary, but yeah, you know, but not commercially successful like, you know, these other guys. But now let's do a little movie nerd and, you know, connecting dots too with Foul Ball and Latino Slant. So the Plugs was led by Tito Lariva, and that's the singer in all the Plug songs that you're hearing. You know, Tito, if you don't mind sharing one more time.
Not at all, my friend.
Oh, wait a minute. So Tito Lariva, who's the lead man of the Plugs. There's Tito as a young man right here. The hombre secreto of LA's culture industry. Him very young. Tito went on to work and star and play in Rodriguez's films. Desperado, From Dusk Till Dawn, Fumando Marijuana. And then he becomes a fucking vampire.
Yeah. And they're playing corpses. Remember, like the guitar corpse. It's great.
But that's Tito.
That's really cool, dude. That is such a cool punk rock. Like, I really am interested in those guys who like influence culture, like from the side like that. Like they kind of like swoop in and become these like institutions, but you know, the mainstream wouldn't really know them, but you recognize, like, oh, that's the guy from Dusk Till Dawn. I remember it. Like, that is so interesting to me. Like, there's the guy from Gogol Bordello. Do you know that band?
Sure, of course.
So they have like that. I forgot the lead singer's name, but he's been so influential in a lot of different movies. Like he's in his music is all over a movie I love called Risk Cutters, which I'm definitely going to do an obscure movie Recommendy show on that movie because I love that movie. And then he also inspired the character from this movie called Everything Is Illuminated with you know, Frodo. What's his name?
Elijah Wood.
And it's a movie about like World War II and Nazis, but there's a character in it that is 100% inspired by the lead singer from Gogol Bordello. Like it's like he's basically doing an imitation of him, and I find that fascinating. Like I love the idea of like that influence that you kind of like permeate culture and all these different permutations because like you have this influence on the filmmaker and culture at large. I think that's fascinating.
And kind of what you said about his music, it being kind of like so moody, romantic, and yet punk, you know, that's Tito's music. You know, there's a song I was telling you about Flor de Mal, Bad Flower, that is a Cruzado song. So the Plugs became the Cruzados kind of mid to late 80s. And the Cruzados was just like mixing new wave and punk and Spanish. So that song's in Repo Man as well, even though it's not on the soundtrack. It's in the movie. Remember I was telling you.
When I was a kid, I was a fan of the Voodoo Glow Skulls, who have that same kind of Chicano influence on punk rock, and I love that about punk. Like I like that people like it all has like there's something about the fast that we all like. There's something about the punk, the spirit, whatever it is, and then what people from all different angles bring like their own style to it. You know, there's people who bring like a little bit of reggae to it. There's people that, you know, bring like a little hip hop to it. Like, but it all kind of is like in service of this, like, this rebellious energy. And I love that. I love that about punk music.
Yeah. And I love that about the soundtrack and about, you know, these musicians kind of like, you know, even Boingo and Danny Elfman. I mean, obviously Danny Elfman sold out on a different level, but he's still very talented, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
Hey, Eric K. What's up, brother?
The mighty Eric K. Hell, brother. Good to see you, man. Love you, buddy. Actually, you know what, Paulie? I got Eric K on a stream the other night.
No way. Really?
Yeah, because I've been doing a Friday night show calling it the MF for Cocktail Lounge, which was really, yeah, it was just an impromptu thing. Yeah, you've popped in. Yeah. And Eric was in the chat, and he's saying he's going to come on air. And I was like, you know what? I'm shooting him a link, and let's put the ball in his court. And to his credit, the man showed up, and we talked for about an hour. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He's one of the best guys in the community.
I love him.
Big time. But, you know, yeah, so back to the movie, right? And to anyone that hasn't seen it, you know, this is a movie where I can keep seeing it every year and get something new out of it.
Yeah.
There's so many nuggets.
I got the Secret Agent Man thing out of it this time. And there's all,
And Miguel Sandoval was like, what?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Didn't know that.
And so, you know, we always talk, well, can it get made now? You know,
but
will the woke lens change it?
But this is one of those movies that exists like it's lightning in a bottle. You know, it's too weird. It's not even a question of whether the politics would allow a movie like this to get made. This is like a unique artist's vision. This is only going to come out of Alex Cox in 1984, and it couldn't come before or after it. That was like a synchronicity of time. It all just came together, and there's no like it couldn't be made today because it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't have the impact. It wouldn't work. You know, it had to be made then.
You know, I agree. I think filmmakers in their first movie out is when they could get something like this.
Yeah.
Like Tarantino.
Yep.
Rodriguez.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to think when was the last kind of like, not obviously a punk theme, but a independent anti-establishment aesthetic in a debut in someone's debut film. And I have one. I have one, by the way, even though it's in Spanish, but I'm curious if you can think of any. That's not, I'm not saying like, I'm not talking about, don't compare it to Repo Man. I'm just talking about a debut movie in the last 20 years, right? I'm talking like now, right? That is as impressive as Repo Man.
The only thing I can think of, and it's not that it's 100% anti-establishment, but that the filmmakers have such a specific vision, and it's so different from everything else. That's
I know what you're going to say.
What do you think I'm going to say?
The Matrix.
No, that's a good one. I was thinking even more recent than that, but that's a good one. I was just thinking like the Safdie brothers, Benny and Josh Safdie, who did Uncut Gems.
Was that their first film?
No, their first film was a movie. I think it was Good Feelings or Good Vibes or whatever the hell with Sparkly Vampire Kid. You know what I'm talking about?
Uncut Gems that's a pretty good comparison though. I don't think it's
like Good Time. That's what it's called. I mean, I guess technically they're not. I mean, I guess it's not really their first film. There's something called Heaven Knows What that came out in 2014. I don't know anything about it, but to me, they made a splash with Good Time and then Uncut Gems. And I use that example because it's so atypical. You know, it has such an interesting pacing. It definitely doesn't have a political lens as far as I can tell. And it's like a really distinct filmmaker vibe. It's like Fincher or Aronofsky. It's like, you feel like it's like an artist talking to you with, you know, cinema as the medium. And I feel like that's I can use them as a thought, but I I don't know if that fits your qualifications.
No, it sounds good, man. I mean, I'm looking at, those movies that I grew up with all the way up until I was like, 25. So like from when I first saw Road Warrior, I was 11. Right, that changed the map for me,
That's
because I
cool.
wasn't like a little boy watching Star Wars. It was like, whoa, what the fuck,
Yeah.
Then a few years later, Repo Man. Then a few years later, I was in college. It was Do the Right Thing. Even though it wasn't his first film, it had an effect on me.
That was a very impactful movie. It still is.
Yeah, and then the 90s, those guys kind of changed the game, with the Reservoir and El Mariachi. So,
There's a punk rock band for movies.
maybe Edgar Wright. What was Edgar Wright's first film? He's pretty amazing.
I think he's fallen off a lot, but I love Edgar Wright. Like Shaun of the Dead is maybe a perfect movie, and Scott Pilgrim is one of those movies that I just adore. I love it to pieces. Oh, right, he did the show.
That's a really good comparison, Scott Pilgrim.
I love that movie
because it has all the elements that Repo Man has. It's just bigger budget.
It's so stylistic too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's relatively anti-establishment if you really read into it. It's anti-music industry.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, he's more of a millennial kid, like Emilio.
Yeah. But you have the enemy played by what the hell is his name? I can't think of his name, but he's got the mole. He's really good. Jason Schwartzman.
Oh yeah.
He plays like the record exec. Mm-hmm. But you see him at the end, he's in his like cathedral of taste or whatever. He's sitting on a pyramid and he's on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's trying to make the band sell out. And that's like kind of the whole, to me, that's like sort of a little subliminal message in that film. There's a little kind of like jab at the record industry. It's kind of like it's like this, demonic entity that wants to just consume young artists. I mean, it's a sub thing. It's not the majority of the film, but I think it's there. But I don't know if I'd call that punk or anti-establishment, but I will say that the soundtrack of that movie it's what punk evolved into. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty, it's good indie rock.
Yeah.
It's not, and it takes a piss out of a lot of archetypes, which
is one of the bands there.
All the characters are just hilarious, and like the way they just, so that was some good shit. The comedy's great.
Funny enough, Brie Larson is really sexy in that movie. I love her.
That's right.
It's funny because I was a fan after that, and she's become incredibly unlikable. But she's hilarious as Envy Adams in that movie, and really sexy. And it's weird. It's weird to think of who she.
But Envy Adams was a bitch. I mean,
she was terrible, but she should so.
That's why she was such a good actor. She was so
she was great. She was just so mean and she's like, okay, I'm jealous. But she had like this hello again. Like she's hot. I like her in that movie.
Well, and she was still like, she still had character. She still had, was kind of more of a she wasn't as what's the word I'm looking for now? She's just so no, but just even her figure, and she wasn't afraid to be curvy back then, you know?
Yeah, it was like being a sex symbol.
Just like
was not like it wasn't it wasn't helping the patriarchy or whatever bullshit you'd probably say,
But so yeah, no, but even then, that's not his debut film, even though he's fantastic and it's a memorable film.
I was actually looking at his IMDb, and I want the big thing. I think the thing that made the biggest splash for him was that show Spaced.
See, I don't even know that.
It's with Simon Pegg and
is it English
show, English comedy. I tried it. It's not my style, but it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And they're like, so it's like kind of the foundations of where Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz came from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it, but I know people that do. But I think But so what is your example of the punk rock?
Well, well, the aesthetic, right? The anti-establishment, the you know, the just okay. Let me back up, right?
Sure.
So, there's a film that came out, and it just got nominated for a best film, whatever, the Goya Award, Spanish film. It's from Mexico, and it's on Netflix. It's called I'm No Longer Here, and it's a debut film from Fernando Frias. When you have Guillermo del Toro and Alfonso Cuarón doing what we're doing, nerding out on that film and being impressed as fuck on that film, that's what I'm talking about. Because the Guillermo and Alfonso were like, the fact that he did this in his first film is just incredible.
That's
the
cool.
story. Yeah, the story is very simple. It's about this young guy who's in Monterey, and he is part of a dancing club, like a gang. They're so poor. They're very poor. They're very disenfranchised. So there you got it right there. Like so that's a real punk aesthetic, right? He's not part of the mainstream cumbias and the Spanish pop and all that shit. And he's got this look where his hair's like a rooster. He looks crazy, but that's part of their culture. Anyways, he witnesses a crime, and he's got to come to America, and he doesn't want to. That's never the narrative that you hear about Mexicans coming here. He wants to fucking stay in Monterey because he is, in his world there, he is the king. He loves his crew. He loves his family. He's not really going anywhere, but he's very happy, and he's got his identity. He goes to New York. He tries to keep his identity, and he hates it here.
Oh, cool.
Oh God, it's so good, dude.
Interesting idea. What's the name of the movie again? I'm
No Longer Here. And he comes back home, and everything's gone. The dance clubs, the culture, his friends, either they're dead or they've grown up. And where he used to dance on the plateau that looks over his town, like it's like a hilly plateau. He's, it's like a vibrant scene where he's kind of doing this crazy. Yeah, there he is.
What a wild look that kid has.
Yeah. So at the end, he's like, it's all gone. It's all gone. Who I was, it's all gone. And he just wanted to come back home. So this is a fucking debut movie, dude.
That's pretty badass, dude. That's pretty rock.
Yeah. So, I was very affected by this movie. Obviously it's, shot well and all the stuff, but you talk now when you talk about punk aesthetic, right? What is punk aesthetic? Do it yourself. Fuck you, government. Fuck conformity. Absolutely. And that's what this kid was. And there's no comedy in the film. It's pretty serious. It's not. Repo Man is so. It's still so funny and.
It's hilarious.
It really is, but and the fact that this is Sentient, yes.
What is he saying?
City of God by
Hail Sentient Dildo. Good to see you, buddy.
That's a great example. That's a great example.
That's a fucked up movie. Jesus Christ.
It's a phenomenally fucked up movie. Yeah,
it's great. It's just the older I get, I actually kind of find myself steering away from movies that are really intense and emotionally raw like that. I just find I'm like I like escapism, I want to have a little more fun. That's why I like a stylized Tarantino movie or something like that. So that's real, but doesn't it's not too much. I don't know. Maybe that's just what I'm going through personally, but I find myself just less and less if it's a movie about real life and people going through super tragedy, I tend to stay away from it because I'm just like, oh my God, I can't go through. I don't want to go through this. Just I don't know what that is. What's going on with me?
Well, I mean, what's great is that you can put those away on the shelf and we can come back to them years later.
100%, man.
You
100%.
know.
Something I wanted to touch on about this movie, which I
Mhm.
remembered and I thought was really interesting. So the J. Frank Parnell character, the mad scientist or whatever, where he
Mhm.
talks about the neutron bomb at one point when he's talking to Otto later on in the film. There's a like 30-minute or so interview with Alex Cox and the actual creator
Mm.
of the neutron bomb.
That's right. They were friends.
They were friends. And that's
Yeah.
why that's what the J. Frank Parnell character is. And that's actually what is supposed to be in the trunk as a neutron bomb. It's not supposed to be
Mhm.
aliens or anything. So that's like the whole, it's, because it's the comment on the nuclear era. I mean, that was the 80s where there's still a Red Scare, you still might just die at
Mhm.
any day from
Mhm.
nuclear war. And there was, the Reagan thing and so it like that was still part of the time. So that's a big component of the film as well, is that whole thing. And that interview is fascinating.
I need to see that.
It's so weird. He's friends with the guy who made the neutron bomb.
I mean, and as funny and as, over the top it is in some areas of the film, it's, yeah, it's a great piece, man. There is a lot of reality in it. And it doesn't, it didn't obviously, it it talks about a lot of the social ills of the time.
It's kind of
And
like I'm reminded of the great hip hop artist, a young up and comer by Vigilante Williamson.
who?
Vidge, B-Dub.
V-Dub.
He said something in his song that I was listening to the other night, and it was I forgot exactly the lyric. If you could post it in the chat, that'd be great, V-Dubs. But it was something about it would be tragic if it wasn't so funny, and
Mm.
that is, I think that's kind of like the tone of this film. It's like it's tragic if it wasn't so funny, and like it's just like, and that's like kind of like the point of view where it's like they're saying things about the neutron bomb and the Sandinistas
Mm.
and poverty in LA and debt culture and conformity and all that, but at the end of the day, they're having a laugh at it. It's not like an impassioned lecture at the audience about the way the world is. Like
No, there's no, yeah, not with this lens. You're so right, because Otto, he decides at the end of the movie, I want nothing to do with this world.
yeah,
The ultimate punk move is I'm gonna go and fucking go into space.
yeah, it's so
But
punk.
but he's got a smirk and a smile
And like
about it. It's
Miller just like calling him in there.
yeah,
It's so wild. And like
yeah.
it's like I don't know what, I'm not entirely sure what he was saying there, but it's just that he's like the enlightened one, he's like the one who's untethered from like
Mm,
the tropes. Like he's not a repo man, even though he thinks he is. He's not really like a punk like his friends are, you know,
mm,
not, like completely nihilistic and nothing matters. It's like
mhm.
this kind of, so it's like it's that I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a purity thing, but it's also just kind of a funny ending that the Malibu turns into a spaceship and they fly off the planet.
And, yeah, it's really odd, and it's like the anti ET.
Yeah.
And Miller. Oh God, what was I gonna say about Miller? Um, Miller.
Oh, they take a little shot. I'm reminded they take a little shot at Scientology in that movie.
Diuretics.
Diuretics. That's hilarious. Diuretic.
And even the UFO, even the FBI guys have the book.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
like, okay, you see this here?
That's fun. That's a punk.
Yeah.
Now, that's a punk rock thing to do. Is to trash Scientology in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a taboo thing. I mean, I think that was a little before they were super established, like in the 90s. But still, man, that was like you're going after shit. Like I like people who aren't beholden to anything and they can just say what they really believe, man. Like that's the type of people I really like. I mean, that's why I like Gary. He's such a punk, man. He says what he really believes. And it's like I listen to a lot of comedians and you can still tell there's areas they won't go, even in their own minds. They won't allow themselves to draw the proper conclusion, and I not the proper, but they won't follow it to its end. And it's like I always respond to people who are truly punk and truly will, like, the truth is what matters, and I'm just gonna say it loud and fuck the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, I admire that. You know, personally, that's not for me as far as, you know, fuck the consequences.
Like, I
You
have
know, I
family.
like, I like good debate though.
Yes, ditto. Me too.
I love good debate. I don't know if it belongs on the Latino slant. As far as me taking a stance, I'd rather my guests take stances, and I'd rather talk. You know, like I totally plan to talk to a couple these two Latino authors that are going at it. One's left, one's right. It's like, you know, one's far left, one's you know, rightish,
That's
and it's like,
interesting.
this is fascinating. I want to get these guys on the show.
Yeah, you should like, moderate a debate. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, you know, but you know, for my taste growing up, you know, this fits in. The reason why, like, for me, the Road Warrior and Repo Man fit in with, for me, E.T. and fucking Raiders and fucking Karate Kid,
That's cool.
because it was like when I was 11 to 15, all those movies came out. You know, I
That's
was,
dope.
you know, I will. So I guess what I'm saying is that I like my taste. I always loved pop stuff.
Yeah.
Like at that time, you know, Depeche Mode, and I loved punk stuff. You
Dope.
know, like I love this whole soundtrack. You know, I love ska punk when I was growing up. You
Yeah.
know, so you know, it's great, man. That this movie really is becoming timeless.
It is.
You
I
know?
think it is, and it's one of those movies that I appreciate the older it gets. You know, there. So
Mhm.
I didn't grow up with this film. I remember
Mm.
I'd heard about it.
Mm.
I just knew it was out there, and I remember someone like growing up like had recommended it to me, and it was one of those movies that I'd never seen, and I was like, all right, let me check it
Mhm.
out. And I watched
Mhm.
it. I was like, oh my god, I loved it. I went back to the guy who recommended it to me, and funny enough, I misremembered that exchange of him recommending it to me. He never did. He recommended
Oh,
something completely different.
really?
Yeah, so it was almost like the cosmic like energies like brought me
Mhm.
to this movie, and and it's become one of my favorite. It's one of those movies that I watch, every few years. Like I
Mhm.
told you, I saw the anniversary showing at the LA Film Festival downtown, and
Mm.
it's one of those movies I just it sits in my brain. And I think, I think there was times early on where I was like, do I like this movie? I think so. Because it's so weird. And
Yeah.
you just find yourself laughing at it. You find yourself quoting it. And now I watch it and it's like a warm bath, man. It's just like
Mm.
comfort, man. I adore it.
And if anything, for me, you know, I'm 50 now, and you know, me and Gare are, you know, we're the same age. We come from the same or cut from the same cloth. Maybe different hoods, but same city. But if anything, I'm as far as my aesthetic and my musical taste, I've become more punk.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
like that.
know,
The more
so
independent, the better. Not independent necessarily, just the more untethered, the more free.
yeah,
You know,
the more yeah, you know, the more alive that like the art is, you know,
yeah.
whether it's a film or a song, you know.
And
That's why I really love Nina Diaz. You know, I'm really behind her because
I don't
she had a punk band called Girl in a Coma. It was on Joan Jett's label. Now she's
know.
solo. Her fucking shit is just amazing. It's like,
There are some really cool girls in punk rock, man.
yeah, that too. Yeah.
There's a few that I really love. There's one. Do you know Polystyrene? Do you know
No,
her?
I
She's
do not.
they put out one album. I'm trying to remember the name of the band. The band escaped me, but I love the band. It's just this really fun. What's the name of the band here?
Hmm.
She's English. Oh, X-Ray Specs. That's the name of
Hmm.
the X-Ray Specs. And they
Okay.
came out, they had one album in like the late 70s in the English punk scene. And there's lots of horns in it, which is really interesting.
Oh,
Which
that's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
very punk. It's very like upbeat, up tempo. It moves a lot, and she's really fun. And she just like this, just someone out. It's so DIY. It's someone out there just saying what they really think. They needed to say it. Artificial, and it's like it's fast and it's
Oh
really
yeah,
good.
look at her.
Such a bad, and she's great. Like she's
She
just
Is she black?
At the bottom of her soul. No, she's like Indian or something.
Right.
Yeah, she's
Wow, that is wild.
so punk, dude. So punk and just cool.
Mm.
Just like, oh, God, I didn't even know she died.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go.
Oh, that sucks. Oh, pouring out for polystyrene. She's great, man. And it was just it only
Mm.
one album. That was all it was. And it's like, it's funny. Her name's Polystyrene. And she just has this cool kind of
Stage
weird,
name. Mm-hmm.
yeah, just has this weird look, and she's
Very
very,
strange.
very punk rock, man. And there's another girl out of Portland. They're not together. This band's not together anymore either, but it's called the Epoxies. And the lead singer is this girl, Roxy Epoxy. And she had this great, like, voice. So sexy. I'm in love with Roxy Epoxy. I actually got permission from her to put one of her songs in a short film I made years ago, which was really cool. Because I kind of made like a little punk rock short about like two kids outside of a club, like talking, just to, honoring my punk roots. And she was really cool. She was really like just down. She's like, yeah, I mean, you can use the song. Like, I'll check with the band, but I think it'll be fine. It was just like, wow, thank you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's someone that I love, And I think girls in punk are they're so sexy and they're so fun. I don't know if punk is like alive, but
well, it's interesting because it's like getting to know Nina on a personal, level, because she's come on the show a few times. She's not a PC chick, and yet she's into being a woman. You know what I mean? Like, so like we could have her on the show and do a countdown of male guys, and she's getting into it and having fun and not taking anything seriously. And it's like, damn, it's nice to get that from people in the business.
It is, man. It's like truly free thinkers are some of my most. I get so excited talking to them, whether they're men, whether I don't care. I just like people that just don't have an agenda, aren't tethered to anything else. And women are some of my favorite. In fact, when I find like really interesting women who just have like a completely their own point of view on the world, I adore it. I love it. And I think you find a lot of that in the punk community because it's such a contrarian existence. The whole point is to not conform
or to rebel. So that's why I like Mrs. Slant a lot, because she rebelled against her family to be an actor.
Cool.
Because that's punk. That is like completely against culture, against religion, against your against their family expectations. It's like, I'm not doing this ever. Bye. That's fantastic, man.
I think that's 100%.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we can go on and on, but it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. And I highly recommend everyone in the chat that if you have not seen Repo Man, and it sounds like Vigilante has not, please, Vigilante, I know you'll like this movie.
Yeah, I like to hear what Vigilante thinks about it. Because he's one of those guys. He's a very free thinking guy. Like when you talk to him, he just doesn't have like hang-ups. It's not like there's nothing you're supposed to say. It's I love his takes. I really like to, because the thing is, it's a very interesting film. It's very unique. It might not be an individual's taste, you know what I mean? Because it is so unique. It's some of the stuff that I really enjoy, I almost find myself not really recommending because it's so distinct. Like, I'm a huge fan of The Mighty Boosh. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. But
excuse me.
That's okay, man. But I would find myself remiss if I said I recommended it to people, because I don't, because it's weird as fuck, and I don't know if you're as weird as me, so I can't assume you're gonna like it, And that's why I think that's sort of something going on with this film. Like, that's why I'd kind of like to hear what people that
Well, there's something very and I understand, but there's something very accessible about these 80s films from, and I'll go a little deeper. So oh God, Road Warrior,
yeah, sure,
Repo Man, Blue Velvet,
Lynch.
Brother from Another Planet.
David Blue Velvet's a good David Lynch film to check out because it's approachable.
Mhm.
It makes sense. So it's
Yeah, and yet it's you know very anti small town America. Like everyone it's like the underbelly of a small town America. But
yeah.
Brother from Another Planet,
I never.
uh, Down by Law. Uh, those are for me like some. Maybe we'll hit Down by Law or Brother from Another Planet. John Sayles movies. John
Oh,
Sayles movies. I love three of them. Uh, Brother from Another Planet, Eight Men Out, and Lone Star.
Lone Star.
Have you seen Lone Star?
Bro, as you're saying this, I don't know if I've ever seen a John Sayles movie.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, well, because it's not that I have
Mhm.
an avoidance of it. It's just I'm like, wow, I didn't see that, didn't see that, didn't see that. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen. Is
Lone
it
Star was mid.
about the Black Sox scandal?
Yeah, Eight Men Out.
Yeah,
It's a fantastic film.
I
Fantastic film.
never saw this, but like almost did. It was like one of those
Hmm.
ones, like I borrowed it from a
Hmm.
friend and never got to watch it.
Hmm.
I would like to see that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, very well done baseball movie, but it's also a period piece. It's also about men you know crossing the line and becoming desperate. Some good stuff. The cast is insane. Cast
Yeah,
is insane.
it's
John Mahoney, John Cusack, DB Sweeney,
Charlie
fucking Michael Rooker. I mean,
Charlie Sheen's in it.
yeah, he plays Hap Felch.
David
Um,
Strathairn,
he
who is
plays one of the pitchers. Yeah, I mean, I used to watch that movie a lot, a lot.
David
Um,
Strathairn is in. He was in seasons 3 and 4 of The Expanse as.
oh, okay, he's a
Yeah,
great actor.
great art. People loved him. He's a
Okay,
pirate.
no expanse talk.
Well, no, we won't get
I'm
into
just
it.
playing. I'm just
I'll go
playing.
on a tangent.
Yeah.
But he was I can't. He was a pirate with the scar on his face. I can't think of his name, but he was great in the show.
So then there's a movie called Lone Star. I want to say mid '90s, and this is when McConaughey was just becoming known. So it starred McConaughey and Elizabeth Pena, and Border Town, and it is part forbidden love story, part whodunit murder.
Interesting.
Is Yeah, and it's they go from past to present, back and forth with the same track. So, you talk about a camera tracking present day, and then a present day uh, Chris Cooper. He looks down the stream and he sees himself as in the past, and it's all one shot.
That,
Right, and then you see
yeah.
like a teenage Chris Cooper with his Latina girlfriend, forbidden love at the time. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, so good, dude.
I'll have to check that out. I think that's one that I wanted to see. McConaughey's a really interesting character to me
Hmm.
because like he did have these really interesting roles for a while and then just kind of became relegated as the rom-com douche and then had
Yeah,
this
he had a bad run.
yeah
Yeah.
and then had this unbelievable run, this renaissance,
Hmm.
where he just did banger after banger and like
Hmm.
performances that were just staggering. And
Yeah.
now he's got this book out that apparently is really expository. Apparently,
Ooh.
he really just talks about like the truth of his point of view in his life, and he's doing these really long form interviews, and it's supposed to be very interesting.
Hmm.
So yeah, I find that fascinating. I find that he's a really interesting character,
Hmm.
in modern life. I think kind of the
He's very yeah, because I lived in Austin for years, and he's a very independent dude. Yeah,
oh, I think I'm moving there, buddy.
he was a very he's always gone against the grain. All just free thinkers. He's infamous for the naked bongo act, but what are you gonna do?
I mean,
Smoking
yeah,
pot, you're living in your own.
actors are weird, dude. They're weird people, but it's
Yeah,
like it is what it is. I mean, you're not supposed to see 100% of someone's life. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's we're all weird if you
But
give it.
yeah, I do. Maybe we can come back for Lone Star.
That would be dope. That would be fun. I'll check
Yeah,
it out. That's obscure for sure.
it is, unfortunately, and it is it is also, you can say, it's because there's some heavy Latino themes in it with a lot of Latino actors. It's like, maybe we can do that movie on the Latino Slant. Bring you into because it's just done really well. But when Sales was on his A game, he had some nice winners there.
That's interesting. When you say Latino movies, the first thing that came to mind was that there was that run in the 90s, especially like the late 90s, where there was like in the early 2000s, where it was just like all these bangers. But the one that I think about that I love the most is the Motorcycle Diaries with Gael Garcia Bernal.
Yeah.
That movie is one of the most beautifully shot films I've ever seen, and is a real fun movie. I'm not like, this is not advocating for for Che Guevara or anything like that, but the film itself is just utterly, and it's fun. It's a really fun movie. It's a buddy road comedy. You know what I mean? Like it's set in this like really interesting backdrop, and it's also like about the struggles of South America in the 50s. It's a fascinating movie.
These people that shaped our times. He's top 10 in 20th century. Like him or not of what he became, Che Guevara was. This is about him becoming Che, and what an incredible eye-opening that he was just. He couldn't go back to who he was.
It's really fascinating because it also doesn't really make much of a comment on his life, which I appreciate. I mean, I guess. Excuse me.
Well, the Motorcycle Diaries are a very young Che, riding all over South America with his doctor buddy.
Yeah,
and he becomes self-aware of how shit is in these countries.
It's really interesting because it's also definitely not like a love letter to communism or anything like that. It's not hero worshiping Che. It's really just watching a young man like be exposed to the brutalities of the real world, and then like him setting him on his journey. It doesn't make a comment about where it goes or what his actions were later. That's why I really like it. I don't feel like it's preaching. I don't feel like like there's threads of where the communism is sort of being validated, but it's not that strong.
It's a completely different what's the word I'm looking for? Prism, though.
Oh, prism. Good word. That's a really good word for that.
Of Latin America in the 30s and 40s. Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's still shitty.
Yeah.
Even though, the socialism doesn't work, down there, it's still fucked up.
It's still very, and that's what's interesting. Oh, go ahead, sir.
No. And you think about this young man who came from a very well-off family.
He's a doctor.
And he was like, I'm going to change. And you think about these people that changed a lot of our world and the way their paths, right? Malcolm, Gandhi, Che, fucking Martin Luther a little bit, and MLK. I'll take Malcolm's life path over MLK, but damn, dude. What
I like about Malcolm X is that to me, he's like a punk rocker, because like he said exactly what he thought and put it out there, but he also grew. And that's, to me, my favorite part about Malcolm X is that, like, by the end, when he gets back from Mecca, he's a different guy. And he doesn't like the division. He doesn't like the bisecting the populace. He doesn't like seeing it as black or white. We're all people. And that's when he got popped, because you can't be going out there preaching that message. But that's what I like about, like, that's what I just really, when I read that autobiography, it's a really interesting journey of a man. It's an incredible ride he goes on. Like, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff. Like, if it stopped in the middle of the journey, I wouldn't agree with that if that was the conclusion. But the thing about that's so interesting about him to me is he didn't stop. He kept going and kept learning and refining and developing as a person. And that's, to me, far more the more interesting path.
It's just amazing because, and I know we're getting off topic, but we're kind of not, because we're talking about people going against the grain. Cesar Chavez grew up in a very obviously a very poor situation in Yuma, and then as a farm worker, child of farm workers with the most insanely inhumane conditions, he goes and becomes, he joins the Navy, and he's a patriot and he's a Catholic, right? But then he becomes actualized and he learns the ways of labor organizing, and he organizes the farm workers, and they all have to deal with, all that entails. And his inspirations were Gandhi and MLK. And it's just amazing. It's just, incredible what one person can fucking accomplish, man.
It really is amazing. And those people are very interesting lives to study. I think it is.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Let's go back to that, right? Going back to Repo Man, because Alex Cox is a very educated, smart dude.
Yeah.
Right? Harry Dean Stanton's last line was General Zapata's fucking famous line.
Yeah.
I'd rather live on my feet. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Yeah.
Okay. Another trailblazer of the Mexican Revolution. And he was the guy that no one wanted to go against during that time, because if you weren't pure, I was going to take you out. We took out the dictator. We need a legitimate presidency to run the shit, right? That never happened, right? They got dirty motherfuckers in there, and then they said, let's get rid of Villa, let's get rid of Zapata, and his own people took him out.
Happens a lot. Malcolm X
happens a lot. Yeah, it does, man.
Malcolm X it's all hearsay or whatever, but I mean, it's pretty much established that like the Nation of Islam was the one who knocked out Malcolm X. They didn't like him, preaching unity and against the division and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I mean,
and soon as MLK sounded like Malcolm, that's when they took MLK out.
Yeah.
When he started speaking out against the Vietnam War and talking about other than than the black community, he's done.
Yeah, we just veered wildly off topic, but you know what? I mean, it's part of it's punk rock. It's like it's all kind of intertwined in a way. I mean, it's just saying what you believe and following through on it. And I think like that's kind of what the punk rock aesthetic. That's a big part of it. And I think that's part of what this film is. This film definitely, I feel, does it in more of a comedic way. It kind of like has this sort of cosmic joke point of view on it. But it's like that's the like that. I think that's kind of like, but it's in line with what we just talked about for a little while.
Well, it is, and I like how you said it is a cosmic joke, and Cox's commentary on this wild ride that we're all part of. I mean, it's a great movie, and it still stands the test of time. It's got a little bit for something for everybody. These characters are just really entertaining to watch, man.
It's really a fun movie, and I definitely recommend everyone checking it out, if only to watch something wholly unique. You don't really get the opportunity to see something that's wholly unique in almost every aspect of it. It doesn't, even when it borrows tropes, it's still kind of taking the piss out of them or coming at it from a different angle. You've probably never seen most of the things that are in this film, but it still has a coherent like structure to the point where it's not like Lynch when we're doing like Inland Empire, where you're like, well, I don't know how to follow it.
No. Yeah. It's well, it takes a piss out of itself.
Totally.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's like the hero. Like there's no like virtuous, impassioned speech about what's right and wrong. It's all just a fun joke. I mean, he flies away in a fucking Malibu that's a spaceship at the end. Okay. This is like, it's a joke.
And his best buddy, when he is shot and dying on the floor there in the liquor store, when he tries to give that impassioned speech, Otto says, fuck that, you're a white suburban kid.
Just like me.
Get the fuck out of here. You'll be all right. And then says, maybe you won't.
It's like, I think it's society. I blame society for making me the way I am. He's like, shut up. He's dying.
Oh god, it was great, man. That was so good.
Well, that was a fucking hoot, man. Thank you so much for doing that. I really had a ball with that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Matt. I know we've been wanting to on this movie for a few months now, so I'm
Few months.
glad we made it happen.
Yeah, since I was on your channel talking about Gentified.
Hentified, yeah,
Gentified, Gentified.
yeah, man. I still haven't finished that. There's
Yeah, I
so
mean,
much to see, bro.
so much to watch. So much to watch.
Yeah.
Well, where can they find you, Paul?
Well, yeah, the Latino Slant tomorrow. Let me put my icon on my avatar because tomorrow night we're having a fundraiser for the Southern California Animal Rescue Squad, 7 p.m. live tomorrow. We're gonna
Oh,
have
great.
yeah, they're here in town. They're all volunteers, and that's who we got our two rescue doggies from, and we want to give back. So if you guys can stop on by, throw in a couple bucks, it's gonna go a long way. And what we're gonna have them on, and then Mrs. Slant will be on as well, and talking about the whole process of where they find these dogs, what they do with them, how do they get them better, to fostering, to adopting.
That's
So
wonderful.
that's, yeah, bro, that's tomorrow night,
What time?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Pacific.
LA time. I don't say Pacific, I say LA time. No, Pacific. Yeah,
I will
bro.
certainly check that out, and that's great. That's a great thing that you're doing. I have a rescue cat myself, and those
Oh,
shelters are brutal. They are really sad places, and the whole state of stray animals and animal
yeah.
abuse is it's a real thing, man. And like when it can't it's only like a side priority for most people. You can't allocate that much funds to it, so it's something that definitely deserves attention and deserves people donating and stuff like that. So yeah, everyone check that out, and make sure you sub to Paulie. He's a good dude, putting out content constantly
Every day.
every day, man. He's a worker. Paulie's a worker, and you're at like I think you're just under 600 subs, so let's see if we can get that little foul ball boost and get him over 6.
We're having fun, foul ball, and you guys been doing a fantastic job with the Expanse, and then having Gary on, and I love your attitude on it, on your work. So keep it up.
Thanks, I really appreciate that, buddy. It was great to have you here. All right, guys, you know me. Check me out. I think the next time I'm doing is the cocktail hour on Friday after FNT. So check me out there. You'll probably see some of the regulars. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. That's Repo Man. Make sure you check it out, and we'll see you on the next one.
Wasn't dead.